What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Laugh to Learn podcast, your weekly source for a comedic spin on all the goings-on in the world. My name is, of course, Jacob Paveo, and I come to you from the Great White North each and every Wednesday afternoon at roughly 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this week is no different. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. If it's your first time here, shout out to you. You can feel free to hit the subscribe button if you like what you hear. Leave us reviews. Tell people about it, you know, the whole thing. If you want to get involved with the show, you can always reach out to me on social media using the links in the description. All my social media information should be there on whatever podcasting platform you happen to be listening to. And, of course, you could always reach out to me directly using the contact page over at laughtolearnpodcast.com. The same place you can find our merch store at laughtolearnpodcast.com/store. Now, last week was an interesting week because I really wanted to focus in on one particular discussion, but there was something bigger happening in the world that I wanted to wait for because I didn't want to talk about it too early. And you've probably already seen the title to this episode. But I want to talk this week about the billionaire space race. And the reason that I wanted to hold off was last week, Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin Galactic, former owner of Virgin America, and now Virgin Cruise Lines, and originally he became a billionaire with Virgin Records. He was flying into space last week, and he actually did so before the podcast, but the thing was, I was waiting for this week because on Tuesday of this week, the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, flew into space on his spaceship. So I wanted to wait for that to happen because if Jeff Bezos died, I mean, you know, that's a whole episode in and of itself. But both have survived, and it has kicked off a discussion on the billionaire space race. So, of course, the last space race was between the United States and Soviet Russia. Some people have talked about Mars as a modern-day space race between the U.S. and China, though I think anyone who actually follows it knows that China is significantly far behind the U.S. when it comes to that version of the space race. I mean, the U.S. has a helicopter flying around on Mars right now. China has 2 rovers, and I think 3. Actually, 1 rover working, 1 didn't work, and I think 3 satellites or something. The U.S. has more than 10 satellites orbiting Mars, and 4 different rovers across decades now, like 14 or 15 years that they've had rovers on Mars. So, not even really all that close. But it's reinvigorated the idea of a space race, but with individuals instead of nations. And there's a lot of negativity that I'm seeing around this, and that's the goal this week. That's what I want to discuss with you guys. So you're already here. You found your way here. Thank you so much. You know exactly what it is. This is the Laugh to Learn podcast. Hey, check it out. It's the Laugh to Learn podcast. Billionaires in space. This is a story from the Wall Street Journal's opinion section from Tuesday, July 20th, and it is written by the editorial board, so it's not attributed to one specific author, but they write, "The richest man on Earth briefly lost that title Tuesday morning, but only because for a few floaty minutes he was no longer on Earth. Jeff Bezos has spent 2 decades using his Amazon wealth to underwrite a rocket venture, that being Blue Origin. On Tuesday, the company launched its first manned spaceflight with Mr. Bezos strapped on board the capsule. By the way, they call him Mr. Bezos through this entire thing, and it really bothers me. They continue. After riding the New Shepard rocket to Mach 3, experiencing weightlessness and parachuting back to the Texas desert, Mr. Bezos thanked the engineers, the crew, along with every Amazon employee and customer because you guys paid for all this, end quote. That's right. I'm not the only one who still uses the term you guys in the modern woke culture. The richest man on the planet does it, so I think that's a fair excuse because people have told me that I should stop doing that. They continue to write, it's easy to dismiss this as a joyride, which in part it was, or as the indulgence of a rich man with attention deficit disorder. But as billionaires' hobbies go, this is more productive than, well, owning the Washington Post. The architecture and the technology we have chosen, Mr. Bezos said, is complete overkill for a suborbital tourism mission. That's because the mission isn't limited to expensive thrills. Tourism is merely the first rung of the space ladder. Blue Origin has 2 more manned flights on the schedule for this year, and Bezos said the company is approaching $100 million in private sales. Virgin Galactic has pre-sold hundreds of tickets for its space plane, which flew its founder Richard Branson to weightlessness last week. Elon Musk's SpaceX has ferried NASA astronauts to orbit, but it has private flights on the calendar too. It isn't clear how big this tourism market will be, but the competition is clearly on as Blue Origin brags that its capsule has bigger windows than any other guy's. As these companies strive to outdo each other, costs will fall. Engineering advances, such as reusable rockets that land vertically, have already slashed the price of getting cargo to space. Humans, by the way, count as cargo. The money paid by wealthy passengers will also help these companies go higher. Blue Origin has other projects in the works, including a New Glenn rocket that will be big enough to put satellites into orbit. Musk, as everyone knows, is aiming for Mars. The benefits of all this are hard to say precisely, but that's the nature of exploration and entrepreneurial risk-taking. And they continue a little bit more, but that is the gist of the story. So we have 3 billionaires, of course, Elon Musk with SpaceX, who everyone is probably most familiar with, not only because Elon Musk is the owner of Tesla and Neuralink, and among many other ventures that people may be already using or planning on using in the near future. But we also have Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, and as mentioned, Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic. So, first of all, what's the difference between these 3? Because it's being discussed as a space race, but when Richard Branson flew last week at 3 a.m. before their flight, like the morning when they all got up for their flight, Richard Branson's home near the launch facility, Elon Musk was there in person with him, and Jeff Bezos was speaking to the two of them on the phone ahead of time. And then when Jeff Bezos left, there are reports that he spoke to both Branson and Musk over the phone the morning of his flight. So, when we look at the space race between Soviet Russia and the United States, the president, whoever it happened to be at that time, depending on what space flight you're talking about, didn't pick up the red phone and talk to the Soviets ahead of time for good wishes, before things went down. That's not really the way it works in a competitive race, which is why I think that this is being labeled as a space race when in fact it's really not. And Neil deGrasse Tyson actually said this on CNN on Fareed Zakaria's show in the middle of last week, when he said that you can't really look at this as a space race because Elon Musk, and specifically with SpaceX, has been in space with astronauts for the last 4 or 5 years. So if Elon Musk really wanted to go into orbit, he could have done it long before any of these guys did. Plus, the interesting thing is Virgin Galactic actually didn't go to space. So they are near orbit, but they actually don't enter orbit with their space plane. So the big difference here is, if you haven't seen it, it's actually brilliant technology. It's so worth looking up because it's so cool. So what Virgin does is essentially, you may have already heard of Virgin Airlines, Virgin America, and whatnot. So the company already owns all of this sort of aerospace technology. They know how to make planes. And literally what they do is they strap a massive rocket onto a plane. So you fly up on this large plane, and then a smaller plane capsule basically drops off, and it just has this large rocket, and it's a small plane that seats like 6 or 7 people, and the rocket ignites, and it takes off straight up, basically, and the plane reaches roughly 50 miles above the Earth's surface. Now, this is not considered space. It's not the generally accepted level of reaching space. The United States Air Force recognizes 50 miles above the Earth's surface as space, but the rest of the globe, the international treaties, all list space as being 100 kilometers, which is roughly 60 miles above Earth's surface. So technically, Virgin Galactic is not reaching space. However, they're pretty dang close, and no one's really arguing the point, but it is true that they technically aren't reaching space because they're using an airplane, and the plane simply can't do it. You would need such a large rocket, because the idea is that this plane literally comes back down and lands on a runway. It's so cool. So cool to see. But for that sort of technology, you can't actually get it into orbit with the sort of tech that they're using. However, Blue Origin is actually a rocket. Like, if you watch Jeff Bezos' mission from yesterday, they literally were launched straight up in a rocket, right? And then they came down with parachutes and crash landed in the desert, like we see with most astronauts. Now, the difference between these two things is actually fascinating because on Richard Branson's flight, we had the oldest person ever in space and the youngest, which is super cool. Now, the youngest person ever in space, his dad is super wealthy and paid for his ticket, which, to each their own, right? If you have all that money, like, I guess why not? And the oldest woman in space actually is one of the women who was selected for the Apollo missions as one of the NASA 13. So these are 13 women who were selected to potentially undergo astronaut training. They ended up bailing on it because, you can't allow women into space in the 1960s. So nothing ended up actually happening. But she was listed as one of the 13 top pilots in the country back in during the Cold War. And actually, I think it was the early 70s. I don't think it was the 60s. But I think she's 73 years old or something like that. And she was the oldest person to ever be given her astronaut wings, which is pretty awesome in and of itself, an 18-year-old and a 73-year-old. But that's the thing. They also had an individual on that flight who doesn't have, she's a scientist who actually works for Virgin doing experimentation and stuff on the flight, and her vision isn't strong enough to be accepted into NASA, but she still wanted to be an engineer, so she went to private company, that being Virgin Galactic. So because they aren't using a traditional rocket that you imagine that's, vertical, standing on the launch platform and takes off straight up and then, basically comes straight back down, crashing to Earth later, Virgin Galactic, being just an airplane where you're sitting in an airplane seat, it allows them to bring anyone to space. It makes that sort of orbital flight not acceptable, but available to essentially anyone. And now, obviously, right now the price is $250,000, and even then, you have to get into a lottery to get a ticket to go, which is crazy, but understandable, right? They're only doing 3 flights a year, and there's a lot of people who can afford that, so a lot of people want to go. And it's safer than the other option of being on a typical rocket. Still not, super safe, but it's making space acceptable for that sort of tourism. Now, what Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin is doing is more traditional. They're actually launching rockets vertically straight into orbit. Now, this means that a senior probably their body can't take the G-force. Like, literally, they reach Mach 3, which is an incredible speed, 3 times the speed of sound. The G-force on your body is incredibly intense and strong. And so the people who are able to attend that flight, although, again, it does allow most of the population to go, but if you are more frail, senior, if you have health problems, this sort of space flight is not available to you. It's not going to work for you, right? Your body will experience too much G-force, and it could really do some serious damage. So you have these two companies that are, the media is portraying them as competing with one another, but they're really not at a certain point. And then you have SpaceX, who is doing government contract work, right? Again, a totally different approach. Now, Blue Origin has started to bid for government contracts with NASA and whatnot, and there are a few other companies that bid against SpaceX who already exist. But of course, SpaceX is the one to beat at this point. Virgin Galactic does have a rocket that has been sending cargo to the International Space Station, but they don't have the capabilities to send humans on their rockets yet. But all of this stuff being said, I think what we're seeing, rather than a space race, is just an advancement in human technology. And there's a lot of negativity being brought about this. And that's where I come in as the person who gives you a fun spin on all the things you need to know about each and every week. Because it's really bothering me to see how many people are looking at this as negative. So first and foremost, people are talking about how much these billionaires are polluting the atmosphere. Look, every single new technology is extremely pollutive. There's no getting around it. You have to develop the technology, and then you improve the efficiencies, and that's how you scale down atmospheric pollution. But you can't be upset, because the way that I'm interpreting it is, yeah, there are some people who are genuinely just upset that rockets are flying and it's polluting the atmosphere. And to those people, like, it's just too bad. Like, this is what we have to do, because if you agree that, humans need to find a way off this planet, which, like, literally there's 1.5 billion years left of Earth. No matter what we do, the sun is going to destroy this planet in about 1.5 billion years. It'll be completely uninhabitable. That's a long time, but we got to figure out a way out of here if we want to survive. Okay? So at a certain point, you can't just be worried about global warming, because the sun is going to fry you anyways. But beyond that, I interpret it as people are just upset because it's billionaires doing it. To which I have a really simple argument. Okay, Richard Branson became a billionaire in the year 1992 when he sold Virgin Records. He grew up with nothing, sold Virgin Records in 92, became a billionaire. Elon Musk sold. What year did he sell? What's it called? The paying app that you buy. PayPal. Duh. The paying app. What a stupid thing to say. So he sold Bitcoin in 1999/2000. That's when he became a billionaire. Fast forward to Jeff Bezos, who became a billionaire in roughly 2010 with Amazon. Okay? These three people came from nothing, and two of them made their $1 billion roughly in the last 20 years. To me, that's the most motivational thing I can see out there. Because people are saying, oh, now it's billionaires and no one else can access this and whatnot. Yeah, but it's the three billionaires that are doing it are all new money. They're all new billionaires. Branson's been a billionaire since 92. That's 29 years. He's the one who's had his billion for the longest. 29 years. He made $1 billion and went to space in 29 years. That's really not a long time. Most people listening to this still have enough time that it took him to make his billion and develop a spaceship. Forget about when was Amazon Books started? I think 2004, right, is when the Amazon bookstore first opened. So from 2004 to 2021, that's like 17 years. So if you start something today, 17 years from now, you can be in space. To me, that's the most motivational thing I can imagine. And so many people are like, oh, it's unachievable. No one can get there. It's $250,000 to fly on the ship. For sure. Like, you're absolutely right. But anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And that has to be the most incredible thing about being alive right now, is anyone who has access to the internet, I should say, because there are specifically China and North Korea, among a few other small places, Cuba, that don't have access properly to the outside world, where, yeah, you could argue that their citizens really can't achieve these things unless they escape, right? But for the most part, everyone can do this. And that should motivate everyone. I'm not saying that all of us should be opening businesses tomorrow and trying to get to space. That's not what I'm saying. But nothing isn't achievable if three random dudes who come from nothing, like Elon Musk went to university. It went to Queen's University, which is like 45. Well, no, I guess it's like 3 hours from here. It's in Kingston. So like in Southern Ontario, a random university. He didn't go to MIT for his undergrad. He didn't go to Harvard. He didn't go to Yale. He went to Queen's fucking University, and he's literally got one of the most lucrative space programs in the world ever. Actually, probably is the most lucrative space program ever. That's incredible. And everyone should realize that like this guy had nothing until the year 2000 when he sold PayPal, right? Branson sold a record label, and obviously Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, right? And I understand, like, Bezos and Musk are the richest dudes in the world. They're literally 1 and 2, right? But Richard Branson is, I think, where's his number here? Number 589. 589th richest person in the world, right? Roughly $5 billion, $4.9 billion. That's a shit ton of money, but it's nothing compared to the other two. And the other two made their money more recently, so anyone can do it, is my point. There's no reason to have all this negativity. Like, no matter your position right now, you need to be able to find motivation to do something better for yourself if you're stuck in a place where you really don't want to be. And that can be super, super difficult. However, everyone has that capability. Every single person does. And if you can't find it within yourself, you need to draw it out of yourself to achieve more, to always be moving towards something bigger, to never be stagnant. because stagnant people are the negative ones you read on the internet. They're the ones with nothing to do except write negative comments online. And what a sad existence that is for those people. So my message really is that when you're scrolling through whatever it happens to be, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, does Tumblr even exist anymore? Reddit, whatever. Wherever you happen to choose to scroll today, when you start seeing the negativity, just realize that that's someone with nothing to do. And now that you're reading it, it means you've got nothing to do. So put down the goddamn phone and find something useful to do with your time, because ain't nobody made money by reading comments someone else wrote on the internet. That's what I have to say for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in and checking it out this week. Little short episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Come back each and every Wednesday. Don't forget to take these conversations with your friends, family, and co-workers out into the real world. Discuss this modern space race. Do you think it's really a space race? Do you think it's just a bunch of rich people blowing their money? What do you think is going on? Let us know. And of course, do not forget to keep washing your hands, keep socially distancing, keep getting those vaccines, keep on laughing, and keep on learning.